So first of all, I would like to thank the committee for accepting my paper proposal. I'm very grateful to participate to this conference. And I'm sorry because, of course, there is a noisy work just outside my window today. So I hope you will still be able to hear me well. So I'm studying women's craft practices during the Roman Empire, and more precisely for the period between 1st and 3rd centuries AD in the North Occidental provinces and in Rome itself. But to respect the 10 minutes of the speeches, I chose to focus on the result from the Roman Gaul for today. My research is at a crossroad between two main topics, women craft people on one side and women and gender studies on the other side. In the Roman craft literature, even if there is a strong interest in the people behind the tools, there was not a lot of studies about craft people gender, especially in the French references and especially concerning the Roman Gaul. For example, in the article of Jean-Claude Béal, which is a major reference for this subject, he does not notify the gender of the people he is studying. On the other hand, in the literature on Roman women, the question of craft activities was not treated a lot at first. The interest seems to have been developed around 2000. And again, especially in the French literature, it's even more recent. But there is still a reference that concerns this subject. For example, there is the studies of Lena Loven-Larsen, which are more focused on the textile activity, but she is one of the first to adopt a gender approach. Then a little later, Sophie Mano-Davis focused on all the activities of women, and craft practices are one of her chapters. And finally, the most recent work is the one of Marie-Sophie Caruel. She focuses on the craft people of Gaul and Germany, and the women are studied in a few parts of her thesis. So we don't have time to engage in the debate on the definition of craft, but you can keep in mind that for the scholars, the Roman craft depends on three main points of definition. It's an activity for which people need to have skills, to do a production, and to have commercial objectives. So in order to identify and characterize craft practices of women in Roman Gaul, I gathered a corpus of 52 funerary steles with a portrait, 4 funerary inscriptions, and 6 different names of women on one or multiple stems. This corpus has been studied with an iconographic and epigraphic approach, and when it was possible, I also considered the archaeological data. So there are several categories that appear from the analysis, and we will start by considering the iconographic ones. The only category of representation of women holding a tool is concerning the textile activity. There is 17 steles in this category. The women are represented in bust with wide-sleeved tunics. These tunics are typical of Roman Gaul, and they are holding tools that refers either to the spinning or to the weaving activity. For example, here you can see Trita with holding a distaff. In Gaul at this time, there is a particular taste for figuring the occupation of the deceased, and craft activities are often symbolized with a tool. So, is Trita a textile craftswoman? We don't know for sure because this type of representation comes with a tricky interpretation. So here you can see a comparison between the distaff on the relief and the real distaff found in Panticape. We can compare to another stele because textile tools can be used to symbolize qualities of women according to the Roman tradition. As you can see on this stele, Meniman, the wife, is also holding a textile tool, but in this context, it's a symbol of her quality as a woman who adopted the Roman tradition. you can see that the representation of Trita is very different in dimension, in quality, also in the disposition of the portrait, and also in the context. But the representation of Trita can still be symbolic too. So we have to look for other comparisons, other information. And unfortunately, the inscription on Trita's stele does not help us to confirm our occupation in life, because there is only the traditional Diis Manibus Roman dedication and her name. But we had the chance to know a good part of the archaeological context. In Augustodunum, there was numerous workshops, and especially one of textile production. There was also multiple craftsmen stela in the necropolis Pont-l'Évêque, and the representation of the craftsmen are very similar to Trita's representation. So we can't be too affirmative, but we can propose with this element that our activity could have been professional. The second category of representation in Roman Gaul is an even more delicate one, because there is 35 stele where the woman is not holding the tool, it's the man by her side that is holding the tool. In this case, the activities represented are more diverse. They include metal workers, for example. And we could simply have not kept this example in the study, but they allow us to question the invisible participation of women in a family activity. It is well known that in a little family workshop, everyone, children and wife included, were working for the main activity. But there is no direct proof of their participation, usually, so we can only propose this as one of the possibilities for women to participate in craft activities. There is two types of inscriptions that present a woman name with a link to a craft activities in Roman Gaul: funerary inscription with a profession name, and stamps of a feminine name on an artifact. The first category is very small for the Roman Gaul with only 4 examples, and it has the major interest to present other activities than the one of textile. You can see there is woman perfumer, hairdresser, or wool worker. And the second category of inscription are the stamps. They are testimonies of women who were workshop owners. They are known in 2 types of production: lead pipes and brick and tiles. Here is an example from Lyon in France. The pipe is signed with the name of Terentia Secundia, and the location of the production is marked with LF, Lugduni Fekit, so made in Lyon. As you can see, there is again not a lot of information, just a signature. And in the case of the lead pipe, the city of production is mentioned, but it is not mentioned on brick and tiles. So we know 7 names of women on stamps, there is 5 of them that have just 1 occurrence. Staia Saturnina, as you can see, is known with 5 stamps on lead pipes, Venula with 7 stamps on brick and tiles, but the name which has the most of occurrence is the one of Clariana with at least 70 stamps. However, we can't know exactly the role of the women in the production. Were they only financial manager? Were they leader of the production itself? Were they participating in the production? Unfortunately, we cannot respond to this question because of the lack of data. You have certainly understand by now that studying women's craft activities in Roman Gaul, where is more questions than answers, but we still have identified different craft domains in which women have participated, and we also have identified different potential roles for women, from assistants in the family business to workshop owner.
Ludivine, you have 1 minute left.
1 minute, okay. So I just quickly say something about gender. The main difference between men and women in the corpus from Roman Gaul is the number. There is a lot more sources about men than women. But if we do a comparison, there is no difference in the representation or in the inscription. So the only difference is the criteria of gender, like hair and clothes on the representation, and of course the feminine name on the inscription. So the gender does not seem to influence directly the way of representing and naming craft activities in Roman Gaul. The difference in numbers might reflect a smaller participation of women in craft activities, but it can come from the fact that less women had access to a funerary monument. And finally, we can also think that the difference might depend on individual choice to represent ourselves with an occupation or something else on funerary monuments. Thank you very much for listening to me.